Good morning, good evening, everybody. This is Amir, and let me pull up my Facebook. There we go. We had a question by Aaron Gross, who said, "If the source of all left felt of if the source of all felt experience is 100% coming from thought in the moment, why ever get married to enjoy a relationship? Why ever go on a holiday to enjoy the beautiful beaches of Miami?" Really good question. And before I answer the question, I wanted to share a Zen story that I think is going to be useful for this dialogue. The feet, the hands, and the mouth were having a conversation about the stomach. And they all were saying that the stomach doesn't do anything. The feet said, I do most of the work. I walk around town, I have to walk to the kitchen, and I have to, make sure that I gather food. And if it wasn't for feet, none of it would happen. The hands go, whoa, 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 calm down. If it wasn't for me, the hands, you wouldn't be able to make the food. You wouldn't be able to have the food go into the mouth for us to use it. And the mouth started to go, whoa, 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 whoa. If it wasn't for me, we wouldn't survive because I have to chew the food. And if, as you know, the jaw is the strongest muscle in the body, and there's a reason for it, because I do most of the work. And as they were discussing this, they decided to go on strike because they wanted to go on strike towards the stomach, against the stomach, because the stomach didn't do anything. So the feet stopped walking, the hands stopped picking at stuff and putting it in the mouth, and the mouth stopped chewing. And you can imagine what happened in a week or so. The body got weak. And in a couple weeks after that, the body died. Because when we see life as a mechanism, we start to think that there is no actual relationship between the hand and the foot and the mouth and the stomach, but it's an organism. It's an organism. It's a symbiotic relationship. In the same way that the idea of digestion does not make sense unless you have a stomach. There is nothing called digestion out in the world. It only makes sense in light of a stomach, right? Digestion does not exist outside of a stomach. In the same respect, the idea, as to Aaron, why get married? To enjoy a relationship. The idea of enjoyment does not exist outside of consciousness. The idea of why ever go on holiday to enjoy a beautiful beach of Miami. The idea of a beach, Miami, and beautiful does not exist outside of consciousness. There's nothing called Miami unless there's consciousness to arise it. There's no such thing as beauty or palpability. Here, palpability. There's no such thing as hardness or smoothness outside of consciousness. You need to have a symbiotic relationship to reality in order for reality to exist. And the center focal point of it is consciousness. All the stuff that was said about why should you have it, even the idea of why would not make sense if we didn't have language to understand it. And language occurs in consciousness. There is no such thing as outside and inside. Outside of consciousness. In other words, the everything that you can imagine, any qualities of life, do not exist outside of us any more than the quality of digestion exists outside of a stomach. They go hand in hand. Now, when we think of an outside world, when we look at the outside world, we're postulating that we are assuming that things are rough and smooth. We are assuming that I love my wife and we can have a perfectly healthy relationship. But if the principles are to be true, right? The idea of why even have a wife to love, right? Well, love can have an infinite meaning at any moment, right? That just goes to show how subjective it is, right? Because at one moment I could be curious about my love for my wife. At one moment I could be skeptical. At one moment I cannot think of it at all. And all of them are true. Now, how is that possible? Because the idea of a wife, the idea of loving a wife, comes from me. Now, this is where it becomes interesting. Then why do it at all? Because it occurs to me that because I bring life, part of bringing life is bringing the idea of love to life. The idea that I love my wife. Although it's happening for me, there is nothing wrong with that. Even if it's illusory, there's nothing wrong with that. Now, why is there nothing wrong with that? Because right now you're listening to me, but you're not listening to me at all. You're listening to codified codified electrical impulses coming to your brain, but it's not my voice, yet you hear something. You're seeing pixels on your TV or on your phone, yet it appears to be me. And you don't have a problem with that, right? So in the same way, you are looking at life from a pixelated reality from you. Your consciousness gives rise to your experience, just like your TV is giving rise to the experience of seeing me, right? Now, that's why to me the principles are so important. It connects the formless into the form. It gives us the meaning of why we have meaning. It's because it comes through us. It gives us a barrier or a key to know that life is more than just our language. Because we know language has a barrier, right? And that's okay too. Language has a barrier, yet when we transcend language, we see something more. And that's why when people get an insight from the principles, they can't explain it, right? That's why it goes beyond the words. We've created a bridge that connects us closer to consciousness before a thought has arisen. Just like when you turn on a TV, the TV itself can pixelate an infinite amount of images, and yet it's not tainted by any of them. In other words, if you put a horror movie on, it doesn't bother the TV any more than if you put a love story, because the light of which the pixels shine is what the TV is made out of, not the specific show. And the light of which we are is consciousness that brings rise to the idea of love, which is a pixel, my wife, which is another pixel that gets generated, and all these concepts that are pixelated to give me my reality. So I get to watch the show. And whatever show arises, I get to experience it. And if the show is that I'm going to live my life with my wife and my child, then so be it. But the experience cannot exist outside of me. I am the creator of that experience. So why would I have a wife why, in respect with why ever go on holiday? Because that's the life that I want to create. The idea that I enjoy, the idea of enjoyment, I enjoy. Granted, it's made up in consciousness, but that doesn't negate it any more or less, right? Why watch a TV show when I know they're acting? Because I like the show. The acting doesn't change anything. So in a way, I'm acting life from what life is presenting me, and there's no problem with that. So it's not an either or. Why should I do it? It's because that's what's arisen in me, in consciousness via thought. That's how I experience life. And even your questions would not make sense without consciousness. All these ideas and these human qualities you've given are human qualities for a reason, because you need humanity for those qualities to exist. They don't exist outside of us. So you get to be in this game, in this drama, in this soap opera of life, and you get to love your wife through yourself. You get to connect to others through yourself. You get to live with others from yourself. And what a beautiful way to experience life, because that's the only way to do it. Thanks so much for listening. I hope this was useful, and talk to you guys soon.